Hi everybody, Jane here, and we are doing my May 2024 reading wrap-up.
Pictures and patterns put into words that stream across the page, capturing life as soft-spoken.
Okay, so let's start with my stats. This month I read 15 books. Of those, 20% were ones that I owned. And that's actually really low for me. I typically try to read 50% from my shelves, and this month it was just a lot of library books. So I was a little disappointed that I didn't read as many that I owned as I wanted to. I had 6% of what I read was by indie authors, and I really wanted that to be at 10%. So for both of my goals, I fell a little bit short this month. Part of that was I did a reading vlog. I asked in a poll on my YouTube channel if you guys wanted me to include the books from my reading vlog in my wrap-up and still talk about them, and you said yes. So that is what I'm going to do. So some of these books are going to appear in a reading vlog a little bit later. I'm not sure when that reading vlog will be out because I'm not quite finished with it. There were some surprises in it, and so not quite finished with it. Before I get started on the books that I am going to be rating, I do want to talk about a book I'm not going to be rating, and that is A Pose Before Dying by Alex Erickson. So I did receive an ARC of this. It is just coming out June 2024. I don't know the exact release date. I think it actually in the back of here said it was the end of May that it was coming out. Anyway, I am acquaintances with Alex, and I know him enough that I didn't feel comfortable rating this book. I did have a great time with it. I just didn't think I could give it a fair rating because of our friendship. So, I do want to tell you a little about this book, though, because I think it's pretty exciting. So, this is a new series by Alex Erickson, and the main character, Ashley, she has decided to start a cat yoga studio. So people come in, they do yoga, and there are cats for adoption that are wandering around the studio, coming to say hi. And so she is working with the Humane Society to try to get these cats adopted while also, running this yoga studio. Unfortunately, there is a murder in her yoga studio, and so the police shut her down shortly after she is opened, and she has to solve the murder to figure out who done it so that she can get her studio back opened. Additionally, she has some family dynamics, and her brother may or may not in some way be involved in whatever is happening. The thing that I liked the most about this, and I think the thing that makes this a little bit unique, is that Ashley has a lot of family drama stuff going on beyond, I think, what we typically see in a cozy mystery. So this is a pretty typical mystery, cozy mystery in a lot of ways, but Ashley, our protagonist, she has a brother who's kind of a ne'er-do-well. She has a mother who is very owns a business and is upset Ashley's not in the business. Her father is recently married after divorcing her mother, and she has kind of a complex relationship with the new stepmom. She also has an ex-boyfriend who he's got a jealous girlfriend. So there's a lot of cool character dynamics. This is very much a character-centered story, and I really appreciated that a lot. So I had a good time with this. I will definitely be reading more in the series. I like it better than his coffee series, but I probably like it about the same as the Pet Rescuer series. So I believe those are the three main mystery series that Alex has out, and I've only read a couple of the cafe ones. I think there's like 14 out. They're okay. They're not so much my thing. He did a pet rescue series. I don't know how many books is in that series, which I really liked. I've only read the first one, but I really enjoyed it. It had a more mature protagonist, which I appreciated. And of course, she was a pet rescuer. And then we have Ashley, who is again younger, in her 20s, I believe, but she is entrepreneurial and has a lot of family dynamics. So, really enjoying this. Will be continuing. Wanted to talk about it before we get on to the reviews. Okay, so everything else I'm going to go through kind of in order of my enjoyment, starting with the DNFs. So, my first DNF that I'm going to talk about is Love's Prophet. I got to probably 75% of this book, and it just wasn't for me. This was a buddy read I was doing with my friend Gower Bat, and he did finish it. I did not. It is about a woman who is having some financial problems, and she has the opportunity to be kind of a tutor for this little girl, and she ends up falling for the girl's dad, and the girl's kind of trying to play matchmaker between them with her dad. This has a lot of things I should like in it, and I just didn't. I was kind of bored. It is a religious romance, and as a non-religious person, I felt like it was a little bit too much for me to be able to read it. I think if you are really religious, you will probably enjoy it a lot more than I did. It was a little much for me, and I wasn't as invested in the characters as I wanted to be. So I don't think it's a bad book. It just wasn't for me. The next DNF I have was Only End Forever. This is another book that seems like it should be right up my alley, and it just was a miss for me. I think I got to about 25%. It was an audiobook. And the premise of this book is we have a guy who is opening a bookstore, and we have a thriller author, and they knew each other in in college. They met in college, and they didn't really like each other. And now she is friends with his sister's girlfriend, I think. And the girlfriend brought her because she is going to propose to the sister, I think. Doesn't really matter why they're there. The point is, she's at this family event, and they run into each other, and they start kind of having some feelings. And I think it's like a little bit of I don't know if it's a second chance romance, but maybe an enemies to lovers. They don't like each other very much. Immediately out the gate, they're kind of mean to each other. And it just ended up not feeling like it was for me. So yeah, I felt like it's one of the ones I read for the vlog, so there's more of my thoughts there. But I think, if I recall, it was just like there's a huge time jump, and the stuff that I expected to happen hadn't happened yet, and it was kind of going kind of slow, and I didn't like the characters, and I didn't like their relationship, and I didn't like him, even though I don't remember why I didn't like him. But yeah, needless to say, the book was not for me. Another book I DNF'd, but it was a soft DNF, was Hook, Line, and Sinker. The reason I DNF'd this was simply because I was listening to it on audio, and the beginning of it is multimedia, and having it read, like the text messages read to you through the audiobook, was kind of frustrating, weird, not an experience I wanted. So it's a book I may pick up again at some point, but in a physical copy. I believe my last DNF is a graphic novel. Alright guys, this is definitely for people. It's just not for me. So I had picked it up, and my expectation was to learn a little bit more about current events of the things happening. And as far as I got in the book, my takeaway has been, it's complicated. It's just really complicated, which I think I already kind of assumed new. And maybe as we get further, there's a little more like discussion one way or another, but so far it's complicated, and as an American, it's really hard to know very much. The reason I DNF'd this is it is very, very text heavy, and it's also a little bit, I don't know if confusing is the right word, but I was struggling a little bit with it. I was struggling with like very text heavy pieces of it. Like, even though it's a graphic novel, there are times that it's like this where it just has all the text. And I think that maybe I'm not in the right headspace for something this deep and complex and rough. And then also, like, part of the reason I got it as a graphic novel was so that I could digest it differently than like text, and I got a lot of text. I don't think it's a bad book. I would not steer anybody away from it. It just was not for me. All right, so let's move on to the books that I did read. I did not have any 1 stars, and I did not have any 2 stars this month. So my first 3 star is Even Dogs Go to Other Worlds. This is a manga. A boy and his dog end up in another world. It was fine. I'm not going to be continuing it. I didn't really see the point of it. Manga is something I'm kind of still newer to, and they really have to hit right for me to continue. This was probably fine for other people, but I was just like, I don't get it and I don't care. My next 3 star was a graphic novel. It is The Baker and the Bard. The Baker and the Bard go on a little adventure in this world. It is a middle grade, I believe. I could be wrong about that, but it seems fairly simple and fairly young. It has a lot of diversity, which I appreciated. But at the end of the day, it was a very simplistic story. And again, I think this might be middle grade, but I'm not sure. And so for me, I just kind of was like, okay, it was fine. It was not something I would write home about, not something I would probably pick up again. I would not steer anybody away from it, though. It's cute. It's a fantasy. And like I said, I appreciate the diversity and also just absolutely beautiful, beautiful artwork. And in color. And I love my graphic novels in color because I have a better, easier time figuring out who everybody is. The next 3 star read we have is The Echo Wife. This is really hard to explain without spoiling it. So the key points are a dude makes a clone of his wife and leaves his wife to marry the clone. Okay? And then he ends up dead. This is not a whodunit, which is kind of what I expected it to be. So don't go into it assuming it's a whodunit. I loved some of the conversations in this book. I liked the characters in this book. I thought the plot was kind of weird and kind of weak, and I think it was a little mismarketed. This has things that indicate like it's a whodunit, and I didn't think it was. It's called a thriller, and I didn't find it particularly thrilling. I just, my expectations were not met, and also this book's plot just kind of felt all over the place. But I did really genuinely enjoy the conversation of this book. Okay, now we are going to move on to my 4 stars. The first 4 star I had was a graphic novel. I read Hearstopper. This is also one of the books that is going to be showing up in my vlog. I liked it but didn't love it. It is about 2 boys who meet each other, and the one is gay and the other has, as far as he knows, been straight to this point, but he starts having kind of feelings for the other one. So I am planning on continuing Heartstopper. I know it's one that my kids really enjoy, and I think I could really like it going forward. It just, as beloved as it is, it didn't really wow me in volume 1. Maybe I'll feel differently in future volumes, but it was fine. The next I have is Blood on the Tracks, volume 7. Obviously, I'm on volume 7. Well, what I'll say about this series is it's kind of like horrific family drama. In our first volume, they were out on a hike and the mom pushed the little boy's cousin off of a cliff. And we're trying to figure out what's going on, and she's becoming progressively creepy, and he is trying to deal with like what his mom did, what he knows about his mom, what he doesn't know, and her continued really weird behavior. Still enjoying it. The next 4-star I have is Beastars. This is volume 6. Also enjoying this series. This is about a school where herbivores and carnivores go to school together, and that causes complications, and there's a very heavy emphasis on the drama club group. Most of our main characters are in the drama club. I'm still enjoying it, still having a good time. All right, the next 4-star I read, and I don't have the nice pretty cover for this, so I'm just going to show you what it is, and then I'll hold it up. It's Underneath the Whispering Door. Okay? Wonder if there's a pretty inside. Under the Whispering Door. All right, this is about Wallace. He dies, and he goes to a place that's a tea house that seems like a tea house to people who are alive, to prepare to cross over. And that's kind of all I'm going to say, and I think all I can say without spoiling it. I liked it but didn't love it. I felt like it had a lot of the same beats and concepts and things like that as Cerulean Sea. And almost was a reskin of the Cerulean Sea. So I thought it was cool. I liked Cerulean Sea. It didn't do anything particularly special that Cerulean Sea didn't do for me. And I think I maybe like Cerulean Sea just a little better because the side characters were more interesting. I felt irritated about the way this ended, although I think everybody else in the world will like it. The ending for me felt like a bit of a cop-out. So, the end didn't work for me, but I think it will work for most people, and it's just my own pickiness of why I didn't love the ending. But this was fine. It was long. It was really long. One thing I will say is in Cerulean Sea, I did not like Linus. You're not supposed to like Wallace. So I actually liked Wallace a little better than I liked Linus. So that part of it worked a little better for me because in Cerulean Sea, I really did not enjoy Linus even by the end. And in this one, Wallace grew on me. The next 4-star I have is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. This is the second Sanderson I've read, and I'm probably going to be reading more Sanderson in the future. I loved the voice in this. People have said it is a Princess Bride inspired book, and I would say that don't go into it with that expectation. I'm not saying, like Brandon Sanderson himself says that he is kind of inspired by it, but I didn't necessarily get the Princess Bride vibes that I wanted to from this book. That being said, the voice is awesome. It's a really cool story. I should tell you what the story is. So, Tress is on her little island. She's a commoner, and she has feelings for a nobleman of some kind. I can't remember his name or his position, but his name's Charlie. And Charlie is like, my dad wants me to marry a noble lady, but I'm not going to marry them because I am in love with you. Well, Charlie goes missing, and Tress decides that she is going to go find him because he has been kidnapped by this sorceress and she believes that she can go and save him. So it is an adventure story of her setting off and embarking to go and save Charlie. This has some great lines. I read this as a buddy read with a couple of my friends, and we were having such a good time. I was taking screenshots all the time. There's some great discussions here. It was a delightful read most of the time. I had some issues with it being too long in places. There were places I got bored. I did the first bit on audio, and then my audio ran out on Libby and I had to go get it from the library because the wait was like forever. But I did end up reading it okay, which I don't always do well with fantasy. So it was fine. I enjoyed so much of the discussion, so much of the voice, the general concept. I thought the ending, I didn't love the way the ending worked. I think that's what I'll say. I had some issues with how things were resolved. I don't know that everybody will feel that way, but it was a personal preference. I kind of didn't love the ending, and I also, like I said, didn't love some of the meandering that happened earlier in the world or in the book. We'd have these really, really great times, and then we'd have these deep discussions about the different types of spores, which there's spores in this world that are bad, or about shooting cannonballs, or about this mechanism. And I just was like, come on, let's get to the fun stuff. So, but overall, I think most people would enjoy this book. This is a very accessible book. This was a lot more fun for me than Mistborn, which is the other Sanderson I've read. I loved the voice in this one so much more. It's very humorous. It was a really good time. And I will be reading some more Sanderson. I hope more of them have this voice than the voice like I recall from Mistborn, but we'll see. My next 4-star is the American Roommate Experiment. This is about the American Roommate Experiment is about Rosie and Lucas. And Rosie's apartment is having massive issues. She needs to have construction work done, and the landlord is like, it's going to take a little while. So her best friend is away on her honeymoon, so Rosie goes to crash at her best friend's place. Turns out her best friend had told her cousin Lucas that he could crash there too. So Lucas shows up and he finds a girl in the apartment that he's supposed to be crashing at. And he learns about her situation, and she's like, yeah, I will go find a spot. You know, it's a 1-bedroom. We can't really share, and that's fine. And he's like, it's fine. One of us can sleep on the couch. You know, I don't want you to have to be inconvenienced, and, you know, obviously you need to stay here too. And so she is a romance writer who is also like struggling a little bit to write. And he's all like, hey, I'll take you on all these romantic dates so that you can be reminded of like romance and really feel it and improve your writing so that you can meet your deadline. And so she's like, okay, that's fine. That's great. So they're living together and fake dating, or, well, living together, and they're not fake dating like to other people, but they are going on fake dates. And of course, naturally, they fall in love. It was fine. I listened to it on audiobook. I did not like the male narrator. It had some really cute moments. It had some good moments, but it was actually also kind of like a little bit forgettable. Like, I almost have kind of forgotten some of the details about it as we speak. It was cute. It was long. It was a little longer than it needed to be. And I also felt really frustrated by the third act breakup and by Lucas sometimes as a character and some of the choices / issues that he was having that were valid, but then also like maybe I didn't like the way he was handling them so much, particularly like with the third act breakup, the way things went down. it really irritated me. And I think I wish they'd have done certain things a little bit differently. All right, so now on to my 5 stars. The first 5 star I have for you, my first 5 star is Barbarian's Taming. This is the next of the Ice Planet Barbarians books. I've been reading them. I love them. This was no exception. So this is Maddie's book. Maddie is a plus size girl, and she has come to not Haught. In the last book, her sister was kidnapped, and now the guy who had kidnapped her sister but didn't resonate with her. Resonate is like their fated mate system in these books. Her sister's with somebody else. But the guy who kidnapped her, he's in exile, but she kind of feels like she's not fitting in, and so she decides to kind of buddy up with him, and they end up falling in love as he teaches her how to hunt and things like that on Not Haught. There are a lot of big changes to the world. There's a lot of plot stuff happening. I liked Maddie. I think not everybody will, but I did. I had a good time with Maddie. And the guy I liked, but I didn't necessarily like. I didn't think he was as well developed as some of the other Barbarian guys. I think we are more sympathetic of him, even though he stole the sister in the last book. Like, I think we get why, and we're not mad about it. So, it was a good time. I enjoyed it. Gave it 5 stars, and will be continuing to read The Ice Planet Barbarians. And our last book of the month was Out on a Limb, and it is also my last 5-star. Guys, this was so good. This was so good. And it's definitely not for everybody. Please read the trigger warnings. The author has content warnings at the front, and there's quite a lot of them. Basically, we have Bo and Win who meet at a Halloween party. And both of them have limb differences. So he has a prosthetic leg, and she has a hand that didn't form properly in her mother's uterus. And so they are both dressed as pirates and, kind of hamming up their differences. They decide to have a one-night stand, and from that one-night stand, they get pregnant, and the book is about what happens from there. I love that trope. I know not everybody likes the, surprise pregnancy trope. I do. I love Bo. He's so nerdy and wonderful. I really liked Win as well. Both were very developed characters. This book has such good humor. It had such delightful characters. I really loved it. I cried quite a bit. It was just so good. I did have two small complaints. The first complaint is that it's single POV. So we have just Win telling us her opinion on things and her feelings and things like that. I think the author does a really good job on this of having Bo be clear about his feelings. So I don't think that necessarily hurt this book at all, because Bo is very clear. Like, we as the reader, even though Win sometimes doesn't see, her name's Winifred, but Win doesn't always, she sometimes misinterprets the things that he's doing because of her, own past and her own assumptions. But I think we as the reader know how he feels, and so I don't think we needed his POV. He's pretty clear. I didn't ever feel like he was being deceptive or being unclear with Win. She does sometimes, but yeah, so I didn't think it was bad that it was single POV. I just prefer dual POV. And then the other thing was that when there's a lot of times where she makes a lot of assumptions about Bo, and it almost creates a miscommunication trope. I don't necessarily think it might not. It depends on your point of view. I did find that annoying at times, but overall, I really enjoyed this and thought it was a great read. Alright guys, so those are the books that I read in the month of May. Down below, please tell me if you've read them and what your experience with them was. If you read anything amazing in the month of May, let me know below. If you want to leave a book emoji down there, that would be awesome too. This has been Jane, and I'll see you next time.